All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. You are here with Tom and George. Hello, George.
The road are bad.
Roads are bad. You're on the road?
I am on the road to nowhere.
my little dashboard isn't working. Anyway, not anybody's problem. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. We have crazy amounts to talk about. A lot went on with Bitcoin miners this week. A lot went on in the market this week. A lot went on in the world this week. And it just feels like the world is just shifting under our feet right now. And I got a bunch of stories on, and it's mostly, we're entering a new era of technology. And I will tell you, one of the themes we're going to talk about later is traditional finance is scrambling. They're behind. They don't know how to catch up. They're throwing billions at anything that'll move, and it's a new world. Let us know in the chat if you can hear both myself and George.
Tom, a little public service announcement. Don't forget Saturday, you fall back. 2 o'clock in the morning. It's only 1 a.m.
I get that hour back they take away from me every year.
Yeah. And dude, it takes me 10 years to recover from it.
I recover when they give it back to me. That's it. I'm a night person anyway, so stealing an hour is the worst. Is Tom wearing tan? No, I got black. I got my black shirt on. I got my uniform on. This is my work clothes.
See what we said before the stream?
Yeah.
About this year?
Absolutely.
This is where the boys and the men part ways.
I think 2025, and by extension, maybe 2026. But this is the year they're going to look back, and this was a game changer this year. Things reached places that I didn't think they were going to get for a long time, or in some cases ever. And I'm just watching all the Fortune 500 companies scratching their heads, particularly the financial sector, which has a significant number of the top 50 market cap companies in the world, and they're on the outside looking in. They'll claw their way in, and they'll try and punish us to do it.
I'll brag on my son. I'm going to brag on my son for a second, Tom. He has made a program that competes with DocuSign.
Nice.
End of discussion. When I say compete, I mean, I won't. Should I tell you this stuff, guys? Let's put it this way. He has an AI detection that is as good or not better than DocuSign's. Even if DocuSign released theirs or not yet. Meaning that if you're going to go sign a document, you throw it into an AI detective, and it's already up and running. And you hit a button, and it shows you where the fields are.
So
you don't have to go place them.
Are you going to scale it and take it to market?
I'm going to try. But I realized that he did it. He's 20 years old. He's smart. And I'm telling you, it competes with DocuSign. Not like, we've really researched the security codes and all that. He doesn't have like the HIPAA, the HIPAA Act, certification yet. He doesn't have there's like 4 or 5 digital certifications that cost like $100,000 annually to get, and he doesn't have any of those. But
not a little amount of money.
Once he has those, it's crazy. But my whole point is, he coded it himself, but he used AI to help him along the way. He used Clyde. I don't know if you know that one, but
And I know Clyde, and that's what's changing the game. Individuals are, if you use these tools, and you got to be careful. They're as wrong as many times as they're right. But if you understand how they work, you'll know when they're wrong and when they're right. And they're the most powerful tools I've ever seen. And they're getting better by the day. It's absolutely incredible.
This is why I'm making CUDA, by the way, to make up.
And I feel like, yeah, exactly. And all of our stocks that we talk about are dead center in the middle of all of this space. So to me, I think there's a lot of upside left. I tried to turn up George's volume.
I think IREN, Tom? I think IREN has a path to $500. And I don't own any IREN, by the way.
I don't think that's crazy talk.
No.
All right, let's see. Let's do a poll. First, if you guys could be so kind as to why isn't this working? If you could smash the like button, please hit the thumbs up. It helps the stream out massively. We have so much to talk about. We got to get the word out. These are the stocks. If everybody misses it, then too bad. Congratulations to everybody that's here listening, because I really, to George's point, I'm going to put up a poll right now and see what you guys think.
I don't even own the stock. And I mean, I kick myself all the time about it. I mean, and we still, thank God, we still have the strategic reserve to go. And I'm pretty sure it's going to happen this year.
That's right. And that's just one of so many catalysts that are, and they keep coming at us. And you know what? Sometimes they come at you and the market goes sideways, right? We had options expiration today. Other things go on that affect in the very short term, but in the long term, like I was going to say it's a freight train, but it's more than a freight train. All right, let's see what you guys think. I'm going to post a poll here. IREN's top price in the next 18 months. Give it the rest of this year, all of next year. $75. Remember, it's 60 right now. It's been to $74. Is it going to 75? Is it going to 100? Could it get to 250? Could it go to 500? That would be
3 years.
That would be like $160 billion market cap or something like that. And that's a ballpark number. Somebody can double check it for me.
Tom, I think once you start to see their, quarterly reports, they're just going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and we got one coming up next week. So
I think Matt looks at IREN, and I think he hates himself because of it.
Well, let me tell you, Cleanspark has shifted gears. They put out 2 press releases this week, so we're going to talk about Cleanspark. Riot put out their financial statements. We're going to talk about Riot. A few other companies put some info out. TeraWolf put a couple of pieces of big news out this week. So a lot of stuff is happening. A lot of it is centered around high-performance computing. So, we've been talking about these as Bitcoin mining stocks for years and years and years, which they are and which they were. But the reality is most of these stocks, some more so than others, are now every bit as much an AI play, if not more. Even the big ones like IREN, IREN's at 50 exahash. Like they're one of the big guns in Bitcoin mining. They have a very efficient fleet, but their stock's not at $60 because of Bitcoin at all. It's all high performance computing. And IREN, I'm looking at a couple of stocks. I'm looking at Marathon, Riot, CleanSpark, IREN, TeraWulf. I could name others. TeraWulf, you want to talk about a 10x? And I own no TeraWulf. So, this is not financial advice. I maybe got to take my own advice. I think TeraWulf is going to be what you were talking about, George. 3 or 4 or 5 of these companies are going to explode. Because it's the backbone of all the technology that's happening. Everybody that's doing everything else needs to come to these guys and get the power. And that's the bottom line. And they have, more so than others. IREN.
HUT.
Yeah, HUT. Yep. HUT got a big price target upgrade this week as well.
Well, we were picking on them when I was picking on them when they did that deal with that power deal.
Yeah. Listen, I was confused about HUT for a year after that merger. I think they could have done a better job of communicating. And ironically, they have somebody out there communicating nonstop with everybody. I don't know if maybe I was just doing a bad job listening because I did not get it. But it looks like they moved in the right direction.
Money off of them. I'm not disappointed at all.
You guys could please smash the like button, the thumbs up button. It helps the stream out a lot. We're going for 100 likes. And I don't know how many we have because it doesn't show me that anymore for some reason. So I'm clueless.
So as hard as it is, by the way. And what I mean by that is it pins and needles almost every day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, you think this morning with Riot. I mean, that's right.
So, right. And we're going to go talk about Riot, but they put out their financials in pre-market. They were off to the races. And then, bam, the market opens. Riot was the loser on the day. It was down 6.21%. That was the worst performance on the board by a bunch. And they were way up. And here, let me. This is how fast the news changes. This article came out today. Today, Riot Platform shares jump pre-market after posting unexpected profit on record revenues. So how did we get from that this morning to Riot tanking today? It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the stocks had a nice little run up, but nothing compared to what like Bitfarms has done or TeraWulf or IREN have had much bigger runs. So it's not like, to me, it's not like this was a sell the news situation. I mean, they reported net income of $104 million on quarterly revenue of $180 million. Their net income in this quarter, in the third quarter this year, was more than their revenue was in the third quarter last year. These guys are making money. They got almost 20,000 Bitcoin, right? And a big part of this net income is the gain that they get on Bitcoin. But because they get to market up to market. And, if you're not a believer in Bitcoin, then you probably shouldn't invest in Riot anyway. Because, it's the main thing they do. They're diversifying big time. They're all in on high performance computing. So they're going to be a hybrid. That's what these two things, these two are now joined at the hip. Bitcoin mining and high performance computing both rely on energy and large data centers. Now, the data centers aren't identical, so it's not like you can just flip a switch and go from one to the other, but you can retrofit them much faster than you can get a new plant out of the ground. And one company is talking about looking at opportunities to switch some of their power from Bitcoin to high performance computing. So, and I'm sure others will follow along that line. Let's take a look at what the people think. IREN's top price in the next 18 months. 24% think $75, which kind of basically means it's topped out because it did almost touch that a couple of weeks ago. 51% of the people think $100. I'm in $100, and I think it'll blow by that. I just don't think it's going to get to $250 in the next 18 months. But 22% of you say $250, and 3% say $500. So there's a lot of optimism surrounding this stock, and I think it's rightfully so because they have a very big pipeline. They are experts at building data centers and managing data centers, and they're minting money on Bitcoin and spending every penny of it on infrastructure for high-performance computing. I just feel like it's a formula for success. The market likes it. Let's see, we'll end this. So pretty optimistic. 77% of the people think at least 100,000 or $100.
30 months. $500.
30 months, $500.
It's going to be someplace in the threes, probably.
It's
probably better market cap too.
I am with you. I think that's going to be one of the winners. And I think the winners are going to have market caps that don't look like these market caps. Here, let me go to for an example. And it's not this. So IREN has the largest market cap by a mile out of all the Bitcoin miners. It's not close. They have a $16 billion market cap. It drops down to like $7 billion is in second place. So most of these are between $2 and $7 billion. So a $2 billion, even a $7 billion company to 10x, they got to get to a $70 billion company. I've seen companies, there's companies right now. That's my homework. I need to find one for the next stream. There's companies right now that have zero income lifetime today. Forget profit. Zero revenue lifetime to date. I bet you I'll even find one that doesn't even have a working prototype of whatever it is that they do, and they're worth $70 or $80 billion. These companies have a super strong, viable business model, and it's a very high gross profit stuff. You know, it's not at all of these could win. And, you know, they won't, because it's never all or nothing. But my point is, there could be a lot of winners in this group. And whereas we used to look at certain numbers and think, well, you know, with a Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and we got to start cycling out of these, I'm more thinking about, you know, taking profits along the way slowly over much longer periods of time, potentially. And we'll see, right? It's a fluid situation. It's, as George likes to say, things change. So if something changes, then it changes. But as for right now, I mean, the appetite for high performance computing is astronomical. I'll tell you, you only have to look at Palantir. Here. My dumbest sale ever, although I have 4 or 5 that are probably tied for that. Palantir hit $200 today. I sold it at $16 thinking I crushed it. I pulled a double. I crushed it. I sold it at $16. It's at $200. It's a $500 billion market cap company right now. right? This was a $6 stock.
Has a company called Flock gone public yet?
I am not aware. Anybody let us know in the
Okay.
comments if you are.
If it hasn't, we might want to buy that one. It's security cameras for like reading. This kid who's 23, I think, came up with this technology
Wow.
for taking pictures of license plates, and he reads them super fast, and he can flag a violent criminal or somebody of other problems.
Right.
And they're everywhere now in Georgia, and they're starting to go everywhere. So like you get off an exit, and there'll be a flock camera there.
We got somebody saying they hate Flock. Probably for.
I hate them too. I 100% hate them. Without a question of doubt, I hate them.
And
but
according to Bob, it is still a private company.
Yeah, it's going to go
Bob.
public, though. It sucks what they do. But it's going I think it's insane what they do, though. I mean, regardless, it's not going away because the only way it's going to go away is if we on the stream stop it. You know what I mean? And I don't think we are. Because Palantir, if you don't like Flock, I'm sure you don't like Palantir.
Thank you, Larry, for saying that. He said, that happens, Tom. I've done that on at least 3 stocks. I'm sure we all have the same type of stories, where we either bought and sold thinking we won, and then they went crazy from there, or didn't buy waiting for a pullback only to realize, there never was a pullback. And so everybody's got their stories. And to me, this one's like a daily, especially as it's been forging towards 200. This was like a $15 billion market cap company. Now it's 475. I don't know if I said million, billion is what I meant. Now it's a $475 billion market cap company. So is it unreasonable to think that, some of these Bitcoin miners / high performance computing power companies, as they scale up, are going to end up being, 50, 100 billion, 150 billion? That's still small compared to Palantir. By the way, it's not like they're minting money. Their PE ratio is 691. And that's why I sold it. I'm like, well, I pulled a double. They're projecting they're going to make a penny next year. And the stock's trading at $16. I'll take my win. Well, guess what? Now the PE ratio is 691. So this is what can happen with a stock that gets momentum. And this is all AI right here. This is high performance
100%.
Computing. So this is
do you know what they do, Tom?
Oh yeah.
Some of the things that they do.
I don't know specifically, but I know, they started out mainly working with the Defense Department, but they've expanded dramatically from there into commercial, and it's a sticky product. Once you adopt the software, apparently
you're stuck.
Right. You're not going anywhere. You're a customer for life. So it's, in that regard, it's good stuff. But obviously, this is how overheated things can get. And I think we are looking in a sector of stocks as we sit here and go down our list of I'm going to take the ones that are to me, IREN is ahead of the field. TeraWulf is ahead of the field. And I'm not saying they're going to be the only 2 winners, because most of the rest of these companies have committed. Riot has committed massive resources, and they talked about that in their earnings report. Massive resources to high performance computing. And, they're down 6% today. I didn't buy anything today.
You're going to laugh at this one, Tom. I have lost the most money that I've ever lost on one particular stock, and it's Marathon. I lost more money on Marathon than I did anything else.
Marathon's been killer. And I'll show you when we get to the charts, what it did, this week, this month, this year is ridiculous. But I could be wrong because it certainly wouldn't be the first time. But if you look, so Marathon is a $6.7 billion market cap. First of all, they have just about that much in Bitcoin on their balance sheet, which means this company is getting valued for zero, right? Because they have a thriving business, but no value is being put on. That's the value of their Bitcoin right there, $6.7 billion. This company used to be 10 times the market cap of IREN. At one point, it was 20 times the market cap of IREN. And now it's between a half and a third the market cap. That's a 40 to 60x flip-flop between these two stocks. And I'm not saying IREN doesn't deserve it. What I am saying is Marathon does not deserve to be valued at zero. That's what it's valued at. And I think that will change. And it's one of these, that's why I'm in a diversified, in one way, I'm not very diversified because I have a wildly disproportionate amount of my portfolio in Bitcoin-related things and crypto-related things. But at least inside of that, I try and diversify because you don't know which one's going to run first, which one's going to run fastest, which one's going to do the best job. If we're lucky, these take their turns because then you can take your profit and put it into the next one that's about to run. So, that's my concept.
The problem is I needed money. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, you can't use any of the money that you need in the next 12 months unless you really want to take a risk because this is very, very volatile stuff. So there's just, you got to be careful, I guess is all I would say. The volatility is real. It's massive. And if you're not used to it and you're new here or to these stocks, there's very few places you can go that you see the types of days. We'll have days where every single thing is up double digits, green across the board. And then we'll have days where every single thing is double digits, red across the board. 15% moves, 20% moves, 30% moves in one day. This happens regularly. And I don't see it slowing down for a long time. So there's an awful lot of volatility here. So if that scares you, and it's one thing to say that and like intellectually know, oh, there's a lot of volatility here. It's another thing to go to sleep at night and go, man, my portfolio got destroyed today. And be able to just say that doesn't matter because remember last week when it went through the roof? Okay, so we're taking our time, not selling any of the stock this week. So you got to be able to have some perspective or you'll go crazy with these stocks. If you guys could please smash the like button, the thumbs up. You can subscribe if you want as well. Helps us get the stream out in real time. It's a big favor. It's free to do, so we appreciate it.
Tom, I had to tell you, I have to give you congratulations. I've never seen a channel in my life stay at the exact number of subs for over a year, 21,100.
It's mind-boggling. We went from a straight line trajectory of adding subs to like just a line in the sand. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is I think people fled from the Bitcoin mining stocks and we got super hyper focused on that. And there was a year where nobody wanted to touch these with a 10-foot pole. Now, I don't even think you've seen the beginning of the FOMO that's going to come into some of these. So the times are changing. I don't think we're in a regular cycle, but I got some articles and we can we can talk about that. I think the 4-year cycle is over. It happened to mirror itself reasonably 3 times in a row, and all the reasons it did that have changed. And so you gotta update your thesis and change what's going on. Namely, specifically, to name a few, we're at, we just had with Bitcoin. Bitcoin hit an all-time high in October. October was not good, right? Uptober was a big disappointment. We'll go through that. But Bitcoin did hit a new all-time high in October. Let's not forget. So it's not like it was that long ago. And over $126,000. So the gloom and doom, the all hope is lost, we're at the end of the run. If you look at it, for Bitcoin to hit a new all-time high, and that's not quite, but almost double the high from the last cycle. I know it's not totally double, but we're close. That is in the Federal Reserve is still in quantitative tightening, right? They're still selling assets. They announced, to me, all the stuff, and we'll talk about the Fed came out this week. They lowered rates 0.25 point. So we'll talk about that because long term, a lot more is going to happen there than people realize, in my opinion. And it's going to have a lot bigger effect. But my point is, Bitcoin hit an all-time high with interest rates at an all-time high, with quantitative tightening. That is going to end in December. So, in other words, the Federal Reserve, instead of taking money out of the market, which is what they've been doing for the last several years, in December, it'll be break even. From there forward, just to keep up with certain benchmarks like GDP, they will have quantitative easing just to keep level. So they're going to go from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. And I think for other reasons, they're going to go well beyond that. I think the government's going to start sending out checks in the mail. And we've seen this story before. All of that happened, right? When we hit our highs in 2021, we were at 0% interest rate. We were at quantitative easing. People in the United States were getting a check in the mail from the government every 6 months for no reason. And so it was all going to the stock market. There's still $7 trillion in money market funds. That's not going to be there a year from now. It's just not. We're going to get a lot more, despite what the market thinks, in my opinion, we're going to get a lot more cuts in interest. We just got one. Okay, so here, not to point any fingers, but inflation's still too high. Fed's Jeff Schmid explains his vote. So in this vote, they just cut rates by 0.25 point. It was not unanimous. There was 2 dissenting votes. One member of the Fed wanted to do 50 basis points, not 25. But another member of the Fed, this gentleman right here, wanted to do 0. This freaked everybody out. We got no benefit from this rate cut in the short term. And, the short term stuff is usually nonsense anyway, but a dissenting vote for no rate cut was a shocker, and he's been quite vocal. Kansas City Fed president said lower rates can't do a lot to improve what he calls, quote, structural changes in the labor market. So,
Tom, did you see he said, "Hi, George"?
No.
You didn't see that? He's like, "Hi, George." Okay. Because you were going, everybody was going nuts on me during the Tuesday stream, and I said, "What if?
What if?
Right?
Yeah,
What if?"
right. And that's
It's a big game, guys. They want your money.
they
Don't give it
want
to
your
them.
money. They're going to cut rates. They did the rate cut. We got a dissenting vote in each direction. The Fed did cut rates this week, it goes on to say, but there was an unexpected vote to hold policy steady from the Kansas City Fed president. So, there's these voices in the background saying, we can't cut rates, but I can just, anybody that's, my age or older, we've seen this play out. Let me put it this way. They're too deep. They're $40 trillion into this game. They can't stop now. This is like musical chairs. And if they don't lower rates, it's going to be like turning off the music. And it's going to be very ugly. You're going to be talking about things on the scale of, the financial crisis in 2008 if they start playing those kind of games. So that's why I'm confident cooler heads will prevail, and Jerome Powell will be gone this time next year. And there will be a Fed chairman that is on board with much lower interest rates. So if we look at the Fed Watch tool, this jumped dramatically. So 1 week ago, there was a 3.6% chance of not getting a rate cut in the December meeting, which means there was essentially a 96% chance, 96.4% chance of a rate cut in the December meeting. Well, this 3.6% chance has turned into a 37% chance. So that's how serious one Fed, and it's not the only thing, I understand, but this one guy at the Fed pushing back, saying we didn't even need the last rate cut, never mind the next rate cut. So look how this has freaked the market out.
What Lisa Cook say?
I don't know. I'm going to bet you that this is somewhere back around in the 90s as we approach the December meeting. But for the time being, this is the thing the market likes the absolute least. This is uncertainty. 63% to 37% means the market doesn't know if they're going to lower interest rates. I'll give them a hint. They're going to. So whether you like it or you don't like it or whatever you think about it, it's just what's going to happen. But the market's not convinced of that anymore. They've lost faith. And some of this, again, to George's point, even this stuff is manipulated. They want you to think that they've lost faith in a rate cut. They want you to think that the sky is falling. So let me see if I got the actual.
Tom, you want to know what I'm in shock?
What?
That crypto is still under $4 trillion.
Yeah. And we had gotten, 4.2, 4.3, and now it's gone down and it's staying down. Now it's trading inside of a range, and we haven't gone out of the bottom of that range, but more and more people are starting to predict the gloom and doom scenario of leaving the bottom of that range. So this is the official press release from the FOMC. In support of its goals and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, the committee decided to lower the target rate to the federal funds rate by 0.25 of a percentage point to 3 3/4 to 4%. In considering additional adjustments to the target range for the federal rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. The committee decided to conclude the reduction of its aggregate security holdings on December 1st. So this is what I'm talking about. And I didn't really hear people fixate on this, but this is the much bigger piece. That's the quantitative tightening they're doing right now. So the committee has decided to conclude the reduction of its aggregate security holdings on December 1st. In other words, they are going to stop. They're going to stop shrinking their balance sheet. And they explicitly said, we're going to buy treasury bonds. So the committee is strongly committed to supporting maximum employment and returning inflation to its 2% objective. So, and then in Jerome Powell's speech, it's one of those things. We get the rate cut at 2 o'clock Eastern time, and then at 2:30, Jerome Powell comes out and says a bunch of hawkish stuff, and everybody freaks out, which is what happened. And he basically said the next meeting is not a foregone conclusion. I mean, he must have said that 5 times. He said, don't assume there's going to be a rate cut. We're going to look at the data. Now, the first thing is there even going to be any data? Because the government remains closed here in the United States. But let's do a poll. All right. Yes or no? Will the Fed cut rates in the December meeting? I showed you what the futures were, right? If you want to take another look at that, this is the CME futures pricing in what they think the probability of this happening is. Let's see what you guys think. Are we more optimistic? Are we more pessimistic? I can't vote in my own poll, but I would vote yes for whatever that's worth. What do you vote, George?
Maybe.
That's not an option.
It's not an option?
You gotta pick a side. You think they're gonna do what your guts say? They're gonna do it, or they're gonna hold rates.
I think they're gonna hold rates, Tom.
You think no rate cut in December?
I think no rate cuts.
Oh, there you go. There's a 37% chance of that built into the futures. So
I think that it's all games right now.
The manipulation is real, and everybody, there's more and more. If you listen and watch, you'll see like this efficient market theory and all that kind of stuff is all out the window. It's all algorithms now. It's all big money market manipulation, and some of that just means that you have to change your investing philosophy, and you have to change your time frames because they're going to do weird stuff in the middle, which is what they've been doing to us on Bitcoin really all year this year. 2025 is, right, if I go to this is the 1 day calendar, like, look how long we've been. This was back in May. Like, we're just under. How many times we were under, we were over, we were under, over, and now we're under again. Now, today is an interesting day because this white line right here is the 200-day simple moving average. If I zoom in on this, you're going to see we need to close like $50 higher to close above this average. Now, if we close almost exactly on the line, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. We'll find out over the weekend which way that's going to go. But, we've recovered. We got below this, and we immediately recovered. We got below it again, both of these in October, and we immediately recovered. And we got below it yesterday. But it looks like we're going to, either 99% recover or 100% recover from it today. And then we'll see what happens. But long term, you want to be above this line. That's where the bull market occurs, above the 200-day line. And you can see, we spend most of our time, we're in a really healthy bull market. This goes that's April 2025. We went below it and had, we've had our times where we went sideways or had our pullbacks. We always get We always get those somewhere throughout the year. So here, hopium for Bitcoin price bulls. A long-term moving average indicator offers hope to Bitcoin bulls. So they're not even pretending about it. This is just hopium right here. Bitcoin's rally has stalled since June, with prices remaining above 100,000 but largely range-bound. Historical patterns surrounding the 200-week simple moving average. I was just looking at the 200-day simple moving average. The 200-week simple moving average is pretty much a 4-year average. So that's a much broader indicator. And here's what this talks about. However, a long-term indicator offers a glimmer of hope for the bulls. The 200-week simple moving average is currently around $54,750, which is still significantly below Bitcoin's 2021 cycle peak of around $70,000. Now you might be wondering why this matters. Well, that's because previous bull markets have tended to end when the 200-week simple moving average climbs up to meet or challenge the prior cycle's peak price. So this has served as resistance. But we're nowhere near. We could run for another year before we hit the 200-week simple moving average. So by this measure, we're already not like the other cycles, because by this point we were pushing up against the 200-week simple moving average, pushing up against the peak from the previous cycle. And we are not even close this time right now. This happened in late 2017 and late in 2021 and early in 2022. So we all know November of 2021 was game over. 2017 was game over, crypto winter. So, I'll say the same thing I say with any data point. This is one data point in a sea of information. So no one thing like this is a guarantee. You can't look at this and go, see, we're gold. I guarantee we're going up for the next year because of this one thing. So, but I try to look at as many of these things as I possibly can and put the pieces of the puzzle together. And then we, as investors, make our best educated guesses. That's all we can do. On the flip side, you got Bitcoin could tumble back to 88K. This from Glassnode. The analytics firm warns that Bitcoin's failure to reclaim the 113K cost basis may lead to a far deeper retracement amid long-term holders selling and fragile sentiment. So here's the gloom and doom. Long-term holders have distributed around 104,000 Bitcoin this month, the heaviest selling since July, while short-term holders are exiting at a loss. Volatility has eased since October's liquidation, but market confidence remains weak, leaving Bitcoin vulnerable to renewed downside pressure. So they're talking about losing lines of support, and I'll go to my 1 day. They're talking about, we actually have a line right where they're talking. They're talking about this spot right here. That would be, from where we are right now, that would be an 18% pullback, almost a 19% pullback from where we are right now. But from the peak, it would be a 30% pullback. But guess what? We have already had a 30% pullback in the middle of this bull market. So I don't think, even if what they're talking about happens, I don't think that you can say it's the end of the bull market. We get 20% pullbacks are normal. 30%, we already got one last year and one this year. So these things happen. The question is, who's going to lose all their money in the middle by freaking out and buying high and selling low? Because big money is going to buy low and sell high. So, speaking of big money, the last 2 days of the Bitcoin ETF were almost $500 million outflow each. Today's probably going to be in the red as well. October was in the red. Bitcoin's down for the month of October. We should go look at what Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners did, because we haven't looked at the charts yet. So let's get to the charts. But in the meantime, will the Fed cut rates in the December meeting? 82% say yes. So we are more optimistic than the futures are, but I think this is right. Unless something wild happens, I can't see them stopping. I just think it would cause a panic. All right, welcome to Talkin Investing. And this is from Rick, member for 31 months. Thank you, Rick, for being a longtime member. Do you think the miners will get back to their yearly highs before the end of 2025? So that is going to be a mixed bag. Some of them already have blown by their previous yearly high, and some of them, we still have 2.5 months. 2 months left in this year. But if you go down the list, I mean, TeraWulf, they're retesting, so they've already blown by. They are at their highs for this cycle. They're retesting from the last bull market. And I think TeraWulf's going to blow by this. I own none of this, and I'm just telling you. And I'm going to sidetrack us and go to the TeraWulf news, because it's a lot of news. Okay, so first, TeraWulf expands strategic partnership with FluidStack through new 168 megawatt AI compute joint venture. 25-year lease agreement represents approximately $9.5 billion of contracted revenue. These guys are now kind of joined at the hip. But in addition to this $9.5 billion of contracted revenue, TeraWulf has an exclusive right to partner with FluidStack on the next 168 megawatts. So that would be another $9.5 billion. TeraWulf is ramping up. So TeraWulf announced this on October 16th. TeraWulf announces pricing of $3.2 billion of senior secured notes. I believe that's the biggest raise in the history of all Bitcoin miners. And I know they're not going to use this towards Bitcoin miners, but in this group of stocks we've been talking about for years, this is the biggest money raise of all time. But guess what? So that was 2 weeks ago. This is 2 days ago. TeraWulf announces upsized pricing of $900 million convertible note offering. They went to market at the beginning of the week with a $500 million convertible note. The appetite was so huge for this, they upsized it to $900 million, and it's really going to be $1 billion once, they exercise. We'll see here. TeraWulf has granted the initial purchasers of the convertible note a 13-day option to purchase up to an additional $125 million aggregate principal. So that would be over $1 billion. So, I mean, these guys have raised $4 billion in the last month. All of that's going to infrastructure. And this is why I think when you look at TeraWulf, go to there. And again, I don't own any of this. And I don't own any of this because I was late. I own a bunch of IREN. I've got my representation in the high performance computing, but I may be adding to it and I may be switching. Because coming into 2025, I thought this was going to take a lot longer to kick into gear. And I thought the HODL companies would outperform in 2025 at the beginning of this year. But That is not the case. They're in last place, the HODL companies. The high-performance computing companies are blowing them away again this year, just like they did last year.
Tom, so I looked up the number of months Bitcoin has gone up in November. 7 out of the last 11 has been positive Novembers.
Well, I think we're on an 8-year streak of positive Octobers, and that ends at midnight tonight. October. That's why everybody was so excited. October.
The worst November was down 36.57% in 2018.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. But 2018 was a crypto winter. So wherever we are in the cycle, we're not in a crypto winter portion of this cycle, if there is a cycle.
So what was 2013?
Oh, I would have to look back at the exact dates. 2017 was the peak. So 2018 was the crypto winter. Then 2022, if you guys remember, was the crypto winner. So 2014 would have been the crypto winner.
Well, 2013, it went up 42.78%.
Yeah, that makes sense because that would have been getting near the end of the hype cycle. That was, how did it do in December of that year?
I didn't look that up.
Oh,
I only looked up November.
I got that chart somewhere here. We can take a look, but I always say I came into November and September saying the same thing. Be careful of this calendar thing that everybody's fixated on, because by and large, you know, there's some line of reasoning here, but mostly a month is an arbitrary unit of measurement. So there's no reason. So you can see October, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row, 9 out of the last 10 Octobers. The worst October we've had since 2015 was down 3.8%. We're down a little bit more than that right now. So it's literally going to depend on where we close today to see if this is the worst October in the last 11 years. Either way, it's going to be about tied for the worst. But is that really a big deal? We're down 4%, and a couple of years ago we were up 5%. In any one month, I'm not going to cry over spilled milk like that, right? Look, September was red. This year, you know, the last 3 years, green. Now, this year it was almost exactly break even. So I would look at quarters more than months, and I would look at what's going on in the market. What are the market forces at work versus what month of the year it is? I always feel like this is very, you know, you can look back and create any statistics you want. Some of them are meaningful, some of them are not. I tend to feel like this is one that I personally have always said, I really don't pay attention to this. Now, the Bitcoin miners actually did have a huge October. So let's go take a look at what the Bitcoin miners did this week, this month, this year. This week, not so good. Bitcoin down 1% this week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of our 10 Bitcoin miners were in the red. IREN down 3%. So Bitcoin down 1%, IREN down 3%. That's just fine, especially when you see what IREN's done on the year. Not a big deal. BTDR down 4%, Marathon 6%, Riot down 8%, Cleanspark down 8%, CIFR down 10%, Bitfarms and Hive down 14%. Those two have been trading in tandem with each other for the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure why, and they've been pulling back a little bit. Now, they both had really nice runs. Bitfarms more so than Hive. Hive recently had a nice run, and this is a little pullback. But this is the week. Even with this week where there was a lot of this red, and by the way, this was last week. This was no Grand Slam home run either, right? We were 50-50 last week. But if you go to the month of October, and it's over. This is the chart we're going to. The month of October for the stocks is over. And this is what happened. Marathon worked their way back up to 0. So I guess I could call them green. But this is what I'm talking about. This is what George is talking about. 0, that's brutal. Bitcoin, you can see down 4%. Now, depending on what the decimal points are, is going to decide whether or not this is the worst October we've had in 10 or 15 years. But look at the Bitcoin miners. Other than Marathon and Riot, these are the 2 biggest total companies. CleanSpark's the 3rd biggest. So the 3 last place are the 3 biggest total companies. Now, there's a big difference. CleanSpark is in 3rd last place, but they had a good month. Up 23% in the month is a very good month. It was better in the middle of the month. Things pulled back and cooled off a little bit at the end of the month. But look, CIFR up 48%, HUT up 46%, Bitfarms up 41%, right? Bitfarms tanked this week, and they're still up 41% on the month. At one point, they were up 100% on the month in October. So you can see the first half of the month was better than the second half. TerraWolf 36. These two switched around. So BitDR up 30, IREN up 29, Hive up 29, CleanSpark up 23. The only 2 disappointments, Riot up 4% on what I think was very good earnings report. I don't know what people are looking in that report. Maybe you can put in the comments if you see a reason why you think this was a pullback or if it was just one of those sell the news deals and a buying opportunity. But Marathon, they haven't even reported yet. They're just stuck in the mud. 0, up 0 for the month of October. And then if I go year to date, this is now through 10 full months. We'll get to the top of this because a lot of these stocks are doing fantastic. Marathon, up 9% on the year. To put it in perspective, Marathon was down 29% in 2024. They are up 9% in 2025. So in the last 2 full years, as Bitcoin has been on the mother of all bull runs, Marathon stock is down. It's still way in the red over the last 24 months. So either you believe it's a bad company, it's going to fail, in which case it deserves to be lagging behind, or money's going to rotate into this and it's going to go on a run. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's some stuff management needs to do to make sure that happens. But they have 53,000 Bitcoin, especially if Bitcoin does what I think it's going to do in the next, 9 to 15 months. I don't think this run is over. I don't think it's nearly over. Fed cut. All right, we're at 80-20, so we'll end this and let's start a new poll. You guys could do us a favor. Please smash the like button. It does help the stream out in real time. So much appreciated. Okay. So let's get a new poll going. Typing here if anybody wonders what I'm doing. I just got one more second. So let's see what you guys are thinking. So Bitcoin's high from now until December 31st. So I'm not saying what is it going to be on exactly December 31st, because we all know who knows what is going to be that. But is it going to make a run? Are we gonna get up to 125,000? Are we gonna get up to 135,000? Are we gonna get up to 150? Right? Remember, this is how quickly things turn. 2 weeks ago, almost every article that I was reading was Bitcoin is somewhere between 150 to 200,000 by December. That was like the prevailing line of thought that's out there. And we talked about the fact that consensus is bad. It's usually good to be a contrarian in investing. When everybody thinks A is going to happen, it's usually B that happens. In the short term, in the midterm. Now, if you're holding for a long time, like, I'm holding these, I've been holding my Bitfarms for years. I think I will now, based on what I'm seeing from IREN, that was a 2025 purchase, but I think I may, hold. I'll probably start selling some of that next year, but I will hold a piece of that for long term because I think it's going to go up and up. But look, in 2025, IREN's up 519%. Right, at some point, it starts to get to be a disproportionate amount of your own personal portfolio, and you got to take some profits just to, you don't have to, but taking profits just helps you rebalance your own portfolio. Right, in other words, if you bought $100 of IREN and $100 of Marathon at the beginning of the year, you'd have $109 if you held Marathon, and you'd have $600 if you held IREN. So now all of a sudden, instead of your portfolio being $100 of Marathon and $100 of IREN, it's $600 of IREN, $619 of IREN, and $109 of Marathon. So that's what I mean by balance your portfolio. That right when you go in with $100 to each of those, it's not your intention to hold 5 or 6 or 7 times as much of one as the other. So to me, this could be a feedback loop. Take some of this and put it over here. Some of you guys might not like Marathon. You might think they're going to fail. BitDR's been sideways all year. I think this is a company that has a lot of potential. I don't know why it's been mistreated all year. These two are so far lagging. Bitcoin's up only 18% on the year. So back-to-back years, 2023 up over 100%. 2024 up over 100%. 2025, through the first 10 months of the year, Bitcoin's only up 18%. I do think we're going to have a nice run, and let's see what you guys are looking at on the poll right now. 11% think we're 115,000 or less, so we're kind of topped out. 26% of you think we're going to peak out at 125,000. That's just from now until the end of this year. That's not the end of the cycle. 35% think we're going to get to 135,000, and 25% of you think we're going to get to 150,000 by the end of the year. I think that's still on the table. So I picked those 3 numbers because I think all 3 of those are legit. I don't think we're going to be 115 or less. I think we're going to have at least one more run over the next 2 months to the upside. And it should get to at least 125,000, if not 135,000, and maybe 150,000. So that's kind of my thought process about how the rest of this year is going to go. And I'm bullish on 2026, whereas I know typical cycle, 2026 would be, start to be a bear market or a crypto winter. But as we've explained, I think some circumstances are very different this time. I'm just noticing Frederick's I asked some questions, so let me just take a second, try and read. Frederick saying, what is the argument for Bitcoin being decoupled from the general stock market? No retail is involved currently. We seem to be solely possible multiple on the NASDAQ, and then the thesis on investing in miners as a high-risk possible multiplier of Bitcoin going up was wrong, but was saved to some extent purely due to some of the pivots into data center, AI, and high-performance computing. So what I would say to that is, as of today, that's correct. I mean, Bitcoin miners have not been an effective leveraged play on Bitcoin, which is what they have been in all previous Bitcoin cycles. So another reason this Bitcoin cycle is different than previous Bitcoin cycles. But I do think, that's absolutely correct as of today. But I do think we haven't had our blow off top yet, where we get the Bitcoin portion of the run up in these stocks. So I still think that part of the run is ahead of us. So, and it won't be maybe as much as it was last time. We're getting diminishing returns every 4 years, but I think we'll still get some nice returns. But really, the AI, like IREN's not up 519. IREN went from 5 exahash to 50 exahash. So you would think, well, the reason they're up 519% is because they grew their Bitcoin by so much, but that's not the reason. If we look at this, the reason is they've taken every penny of that, and instead of hodling Bitcoin, they sell it all and build high performance computing data centers. And the market likes that. And same with CIFR and same with TeraWulf. Bitfarms has made a major pivot. They have 17.7 exahash. They're done. They're not going to add any more machines for the indefinite future. Wolf has 12.2 exahash. They're done. They're not going to add any more exahash for the foreseeable future. Hut sold off their exahash. They're at 0. So, you're seeing a trend here. Those companies that, TeraWulf's up 174% this year. That's a good year. On a year Bitcoin's up 18%. It's clearly not up on Bitcoin. It's up on high performance computing. So that has been, they have been saved. I would agree with that, Frederick. But I also would say that with Bitcoin and the decoupling from the general stock market, I think in cryptocurrency, you get much more manipulation in the short term. And I think we're being manipulated. We had a giant options expiration today, so that always causes additional manipulation and volatility. I think you're going to see Bitcoin catch up to the market, catch up to gold, and get its turn. It hasn't had its turn yet, so if we look at, this is the SPY. So this is the S&P 500. Right? Remember, it crashed at the beginning of 2025 into April 7th, April 8th. This thing crashed. But what happened? As always, V-shaped recovery. We got back to our previous all-time high, and now we're way above it. Now, this week we did set a new all-time high several days in a row. We didn't finish the week at our all-time high, but we're still setting new all-time highs multiple days per week in the equity markets. Bitcoin's not doing that. We're going to look at that. Gold ran up to almost $4,380. Almost $4,400 gold ran up to. So, but now it's at $4,000. I think gold had its mega run. And this run went on for a lot longer than just what you're seeing here, because this went from 2,000 to 4,000 in not very long period of time. Right, if I go back, October of 2023, this was under $2,000. It's doubled in 2 years, which gold doesn't do. So this has been a spectacular run. I don't think gold's going to crash. I just think they got their run ahead of Bitcoin. Because if we look at Bitcoin, whereas you see gold blowing by its previous all-time highs, one day, right? Bitcoin's down off of its, right now, Bitcoin is 13% off of its recent all-time high, and that's a series of higher highs. So we didn't get this this run that the market got in the last, to your point, Frederick, this run the market got, we didn't get, but I think it's coming. I think there, all through this, there was talk Bitcoin's going to lag gold by 6 weeks. And, is it going to be exactly 6 weeks? I doubt it. But I think the concept that it's lagging gold, but it's going to catch up and make ground, I believe that to be the case. I see Tom Mara is going to go on a hell of a run after their earnings call. They will be forced into the AI business. So 100% agree. I talked about this on the members only stream at great length. I think we're going to see Marathon make some major commitments to high performance computing. They're the last holdout. I'm going to show you what CleanSpark did. They pivoted, and they didn't just pivot a little. They pivoted a lot. And they used to brag that they were they're the only 100% pure play Bitcoin mining company. They're still very proud of their Bitcoin mining, but they are heavy into getting their high performance computing up and running. Marathon hasn't made that level of commitment yet. But two things are going to happen. We know they have 53,000 Bitcoin. They're going to make $500 million this quarter. That's just real. That's what their financial statements are going to say. So are they going to tank? I mean, Riot did. Riot made $100 million this quarter. Right? If you look at Riot, net income, $104 million. That's net income. $104 million in the quarter. Their adjusted EBITDA, $197 million. And this stock tanked today. So I don't know what to tell you. Now we're going to get Marathon's earnings shortly. And we know if Riot made $100 million, Marathon's going to make, $350 or $500 million. Because they just have that many more Bitcoin. So they get that markup to market, and it's going to be huge. So they're going to be, we'll take a look at MicroStrategy. They made billions of dollars. They've made, instead of finding the article, I'll check my notes, but I think it's, so we'll switch to that. I'm going to go to the article and talk about that because they are MicroStrategy, and MicroStrategy had a phenomenal day today. And this is inside of a broader scope where they've been getting destroyed. So I don't know if today was an outlier, if today was a turnaround. They put out their earnings, and I think I got something open on this, and it's worth looking at. This one. Strategy eyes global credit expansion. So the strategy is AKA, actually formerly known as MicroStrategy. Strategy posts record profits and strengthens balance sheet as it eyes S&P 500 inclusion. So a couple of the key takeaways. So they were eligible for the S&P 500 inclusion this last time around. They did not get picked. I think Robinhood got picked instead. And, that was a reasonable pick. The company reported this is MicroStrategy, or Strategy as they are now called. The company reported $12 billion in operating income and $8.6 billion in net income for the first 9 months of 2025, reversing last year's losses and achieving earnings per share of $27.71. So $12 billion. That's now MicroStrategy has 640,000 Bitcoin. Marathon's got and MicroStrategy's first place. Marathon is in second place. Happens to be a distant second place, but they have over 53. They're coming up on 54,000 Bitcoin. So they're going to get a huge markup. They're going to have a great report. And I do agree that they're going to talk about high performance computing. I mean, if they don't do that at some time in the next 90 days, then something's gone wrong over there, because I mean, I was late. I jumped in February and I was late. It's going to be November tomorrow. They're very late. So, but I do think it's coming. I think you're going to see a run in Marathon because it's being very undervalued. Here's another stock. I'm just going to jump around because there's so much happened. We didn't get to a lot of it. Core Scientific upgraded to outperform. This is the third upgrade they've gotten in the last week. Only this one, the last two were on speculation, and now it's confirmed following the failed CoreWeave merger. Shareholders voted, and they voted this down. So Core Scientific, CoreWeave, which is Core Scientific's biggest customer by, tenfold, was going to buy Core Scientific. Now, when they put this offer in, it wasn't that long ago, but it was just long enough ago that AI stocks, these power companies, hadn't taken their ballistic run. And so whereas this was perceived as a nice price for Core Scientific 10 months ago, a big premium to what their stock was trading at, now it's perceived like, why are we giving this away if we just keep it ourselves? I think that $9 billion was this deal. And I think this is going to be much bigger than a $9 billion company. So you can see, I don't even want to pronounce that, Macquarie upgraded Core Scientific to outperform from neutral and hiked its price target on the stock to $34. The stock's trading at $20 today and change. And let's just take a look. Core Scientific is up 3.86% today. So it's not like it went wild on this news. It's trading at $21.54. So that's slightly above the price that the buyout was going to happen. But I think there's a lot more upside to this company because if you want to talk about who's in first place, Core Scientific is ahead of everybody else. Now, TeraWulf's making investments on a scale that's monumental, and I think they may catch up and pass. But if we go to, let's look at Core Scientific. So you can see this is under a $7 billion market cap. This could easily 10x. They have massive infrastructure and they have massive contracts. Now, you run the risk. A lot of those contracts are with CoreWeave, and they have a lot of options. So if they don't exercise those options because this merger didn't go through, a couple years from now, they might be looking at a different equation. But I think that space will fill up one way or the other, whether it's with CoreWeave or whoever else wants it. This is in high demand. And the thing is, to go from a green field to a power station is typically 2 years or more. So these companies that are already at the finish line, they just have an advantage. Their power is going to get used first because it's here and it's available. Hello, Texas. And I see, I'm going to mispronounce your name. Sorry, you're a member. Ja Wenog, pardon my pronunciation, said Mara should buy Bitfarms, which is ready for high performance computing and AI. So there's a merger that makes more sense to me than the Riot merger failed hostile takeover attempt of Bitfarms. While it cost Bitfarms dearly, although they've recovered significantly, it never made any sense from Riot's standpoint. And at $2.30 a share, it never stood any chance of being passed by the shareholders. So that hostile takeover was a failure from the start. It's sidetracked. I'm glad Riot's out of there. They're out of their position in that. They're out of their meddling in Bitfarms business. It never made any sense. And I own Riot, and I'm actually high on Riot. I like what they do, but I don't like what they did there at all. It made no sense to me, and it played out exactly as I think a lot of us suspected it would. It just didn't make sense at $2.30. But if Marathon were to come in at $6 or $7, you might get some interested shareholders, because that merged company they would add a lot of value to Marathon. Marathon's not going to get them for free, right? Because they've gone up drastically. This was a 68 cents a share company 5 months ago. So they just issued convertible debt, and the debt converts at $6.86. That's 10x what they were trading at 5 months ago. So, Bitfarms is already in the middle of its turnaround story, but I would love to see those two companies together if it made sense, if it was the right price. And it would be a way for them to hit the ground running, because, Bitfarms has got a lot of stuff going on the high performance computing side of things. So they're very intentionally, they're re-domiciling to the United States. They've moved virtually all their business out of Canada into the United States. Canada has become very Bitcoin mining unfriendly. And some of that is just, it's so cold that the energy, they need the energy. Now, you could argue that Bitcoin miners oftentimes build out energy infrastructure and add to the grid. And they're the one thing. Here's the difference between a Bitcoin miner and a data center for high performance computing. For instance, Riot has a deal with the state of Texas. If the need arises, Riot just shuts all their machines off and they don't give it, they sell it all to the state of Texas when energy needs are high. Well, when you're mining Bitcoin, there is no customer. You can turn those machines on and off at will, right? If you're going to make more money the other way, just shut them off. And then you can turn them back on whenever you want. If you're running a high performance computing data center, you can't turn that off. That's got to be up 99.99% of the time. So there's no turning that off even for a second. So in that regard, they are different. So I'm surprised that Canada didn't go after more of the high performance computing data centers than the Bitcoin mining data centers that actually have the chance to contribute to the grid when it's stressed. But I'm not in charge of any of that. So they'll do whatever they do. All right, Bitcoin high. So I'm going to end this poll. 135,000 won, but 150,000 got a lot of votes too. So more than half of you, 62% of you, think we're getting at least to 135,000, if not more. So that's an encouraging poll. And I agree. I think there's plenty of time. There's 2 full months. I think there's plenty of time for another nice run in 2025, some more consolidation. and then an even bigger run in 2026. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think that's going to happen based on, and I'm not going to get to a lot of these articles, but every traditional finance company, all the financial institutions are desperately trying to find a way to get involved in cryptocurrency, specifically through stable coins first, because the stable coin bill is already passed. So they're clear on what they can and can't do there. And they all want in a big way. I mean, I found an article about Visa trying to get in, MasterCard trying to get in, Western Union is getting into the stablecoin business. I mean, several banks want to get together and form their own stablecoin. Several other banks want to just straight out have their own proprietary stablecoin. My answer to all of them is this. It's going to be, we have two stable coins. There's more than that. There's many stable coins, but two of them make up 90 to 95% of the total market cap, and they are Tether and Circle. And I think those two are just going to continue to grow. Circle is a publicly traded company, so there's a play on a stable coin, because obviously if you buy stable coins, you're not making anything. The play on that would be Circle. I think it's overvalued right now, but that's just my opinion. Who knows how these things can run. Tom, do you think Jane Street is manipulating the stock? They recently bought 29 million shares. There was a rumor about that. Overall, the whole sector was down this week, but it could be. I saw they disclosed that they bought 29 million shares. The stock ran up during that period of time and peaked. So I don't know if they're I want to go to that chart, because a part of this is just, if you see the run that Bitfarms had. See, I've got a line of support just under $4. And that goes back to February of 2024. That was the high of this cycle until we crushed that in October. We got up to $6.60 in October. But remember, this stock was trading here at 68 cents in June. So that's a 10x, 9x, almost a 10x in a few months. So the fact that we have had a pullback, and you can see red, but we did hold this line, and I'm pretty encouraged about this $4 line. We're at $3.97, and my line's at $3.91. So we held that a week ago. We held it again today, and I think this is going to be mostly an above $4 stock going forward. And then I think it has the room to run a long way from there as time goes on. And you can see on the 1 day, this is one of the reasons we're getting these. The second half of October was set up for consolidation and pullback in the Bitcoin miners, because this chart is a classic example. On October 15th, the daily RSI for Bitfarms was 92. 70 is considered overbought for most normal stocks. Now, this is a highly volatile stock, so 80, they frequently get up to 80, but 90 is crazy time. So when your stock's trading and the daily RSI is at 90, you can bet at a minimum you're going to get a little consolidation, if not a healthy little pullback. So they had a bearish crossover on the 22nd of October on the MACD. But look, they bounced off of 50 on the daily RSI. They're back down at 50 again. I don't think this is going to have to take a trip all the way back down to 30 or 25. This has held this $50 line. Look, it bounced off of it in September. It held it in all the way. The last time it really got under there was in June of 2025. So I think we're in a nice stretch we've had from the peak on this stock. Bitfarms has pulled back as of the close today about 40%. That's a big pullback. So that sounds like a nightmare. But the reality is, if you've been holding this for any period of time at all, even if you bought this in the beginning of September, you're still up 211% since September on this stock. So this is a huge run up. By the way, in the middle, they went out and financed right here. They went and financed $900 million. So their coffers are full. All the build out they want to do on their high performance computing, they got to raise. And again, that is convertible debt, and it's convertible at $6.86. So that is 10 times what this stock was trading 5 months earlier. So they were able to, had they tried to go get that $900 million 3 months earlier, 6 months earlier, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. The whole company wasn't worth that much money, not even close. But now that represented, a fraction of the size of their company. So that was the right time to do it. As a result, yes, the stock has pulled back. Everything's resetting itself. But at some point, you can see we're pretty severely into this bearish crossover on the histogram here for the MACD. And this is usually a pretty good indicator that at some point, this is going to bottom out. You're going to start getting pink candles, and this is going to turn around. I happen to think we're at that point because I think we're bouncing off of 50, just like we did here, and we've held this line here. So to me, Bitfarms did all the things it needed to do this week, even with a pullback, to hold the line, to stay above support. I think we're going to get pink candles on the histogram next week on Bitfarms and start the turnaround back up to retest these highs. That's my opinion. That's what the month of November, I think, holds for Bitcoin, for Bitfarms. Now, a lot of the Bitcoin miner companies looked like this. They weren't all necessarily at 90 on the daily RSI, but they were they were all overbought. So, if I just jump to a couple of these, I'll go to IREN. So you can see I have a line at 83. So this went over that line in October. So it was around 85 in early October. That's just way overbought. So it pulled back. But look what it did. It bounced off of 50. And then it pretty much bounced off of 50 again. And so this stock's having the same setup that one is. Cleanspark. Cleanspark on October 9th. We're talking 86, the daily RSI. And remember, 70's overbought for normal stocks. I always use 80 as my benchmark as being overbought for these stocks because they are higher volatility. But at 85 to 90, you are super overbought. And it's unsustainable. You can't spend 6 months on the one-day chart at 85 daily RSI. You're going to get this pullback. And here's another one, Cleanspark. What did it do? It perfectly bounced off of 50, and it's doing it again right now. And this one has the same setup. So I think we just felt all the pain. These last 2 to 2.5 weeks, that was the pain. And that doesn't mean Monday, it's all back on again and everything's green forever. But I think November is going to be very good. I think the pause was October after some vicious run-ups. After a new all-time high in Bitcoin in October, everything has taken a breather. It's all reset. And I believe so we'll do one more we kind of did this. So Bitcoin. Okay, so will the Bitcoin miners, and I'm putting in their high performance computing stocks because bottom line, they're both now, for by and large and for the most part, will they retest their 2025 highs? Right, most of them are off. You can see we just went through the last 2 weeks. There's been a pullback. Most of them are off of their 2025 highs. Are they going to turn the corner, retest their 2025 highs? I think they're going to do that. I think they're going to take out their 2025 highs. And I think 2026 is going to be a very good year for Bitcoin miners / high performance computing stocks. And we have to acknowledge, I mean, I'm going to go to Cleanspark. Cleanspark put out 2 press releases this week. Cleanspark selects Submer as its first strategic partner for AI data center expansion in North America. So this goes on to talk about their expertise in certain areas. So they're partnering together to build out their high performance computing. They put that out a few days ago, and then they put this out the next day. Cleanspark enters Texas market with land and large-scale power acquisition to rapidly deploy an AI data center in Greater Houston. Acquisition increases power under contract by 28%. So they got themselves 271 acres, and you can see it says it right here. 271 acres with 285 megawatts of power in Austin, Texas. So a lot of these Bitcoin mining companies have some portion of their business in Texas. Cleanspark had been finding they're kind of based in Georgia, but they're in several other places. But this is a big move into Texas. This accelerates their ability to get this AI up and running. And so this is what I mean. They didn't just pivot, like they changed direction. And that doesn't mean they've abandoned ship on Bitcoin mining. They're still a Bitcoin miner. There's a sentence in here I want to find. Just a second. Okay, here we go. This is from Matt Schultz, the now CEO. Securing power and land at this scale in one of the nation's most attractive markets positions us to meet the accelerating demand for AI computing while continuing to deliver long-term value for our shareholders. We continue to lead in Bitcoin mining. So like I said, they have not abandoned ship on Bitcoin mining. That's still a part of what they do. But this next part of the sentence to me is key. We continue to lead in Bitcoin mining, are actively reviewing AI conversion opportunities across our existing portfolio. So not only the 285 megawatts that they just bought, but the gigawatt they already have, they're looking for opportunities. Can they convert some of that from, because they were going to run from 50 to 60 exahash. I got a feeling there's 4 or 5 companies that are running up to 50 exahash and stopping. IREN already did it. They got to 50 exahash. They told us they were going to do it. They did exactly what they said they were going to do, and they stopped at 50 exahash, and they stopped indefinitely. Now, we'll see what happens, how the economics of everything looks as the next halving approaches, as to whether or not these companies gear up again and try and get to, bigger numbers, 100 exahash. Marathon is already at 60 plus, so they're already bigger than the group. But I think you're seeing, this is the kind of shift you're seeing. This is what Marathon hasn't done. Cleanspark was the second last one to do this. Marathon is now the only one out of all these companies that hasn't talked about reallocating some significant portion of their time, effort, energy, and money to high-performance computing. So I think Cleanspark should get a big bump on this, and it really didn't. It's because that it was already on such a huge tear. We'll go back to that chart. Right, if we go from September 5th, where it bottomed out, this was up 155% from September 5th to October 15th. And, it was at 85 on the daily RSI. It's hard to continue that momentum. So getting a little pullback, this is healthy. This is how it works. But we've got, like I said on Cleanspark, we've double bottomed here, touching 50 on the daily RSI, which is neutral. I think we're poised for the next leg up. We've held this line of support by and large. You can see we did close below it a couple of times, but we've been right in this neighborhood. And that goes back to, this was their high of this run in November of 2024. So it took them until October of 2025 to get back there. But when they did get back there, they pretty much took it out. Now they're hanging on this line. I think this is going to turn into support. I think Cleanspark's going to run up from here. I think it's a bargain. They've made a major pivot to high-performance computing. And I think there's more press releases like this to come. There was a plethora of press releases this week, and they were all. So here's the official press release. Core Scientific announces termination of merger agreement with CoreWeave. Do that. I was going to ask you guys, so maybe we'll do this real quick because this is a runaway. Will Bitcoin miners stocks retest their highs by the end of this year? 88% say yes. Well, I'm in that group as well. I think that's for sure. Well, nothing's for sure, but I think that's likely. I think the setup is there for all these to take a nice run somewhere, I think, in November. And we'll see what happens from there. Double check that I didn't already do this. I had it in my head, but I must have never run the poll. Let's do it. CORZ Scientific. So is CORZ a buy? I think it closed today at $21.54. Let's just double check if that's the wrong number, whatever the number was. Let's see. CORZ Scientific, $21.54. So up, it didn't go crazy today. It was up 3.86% on the news that they voted no on this merger. Is it a buy? I will tell you, my answer to that is a resounding yes. I own no CORZ Scientific and I own no TeraWulf. Those are two stocks I'm not in that I would like to be in. But it's tough because there's only so much to go around. And as you guys, for those of you who have followed the channel for a while, I already have a pretty diversified portfolio of Bitcoin miners / high performance computing companies. So trying to add two more, I feel like I may have to reallocate some of my money from the stocks that have already had big runs, because I think, this is a total reset for Core Scientific. They just got set free. So, and there was a price target put on them. Core Scientific upgraded to outperform following failed CoreWeave merger. 50% upside. They put a price target of $34 on this. It's at $21 right now. And I don't think 34 is a big deal. And I think it could go way, way past this. They have a lot of infrastructure and they have big contracts. So we'll see how this plays out. The market didn't go crazy. It was up today, but it's not like the market thought this was a game changer. But I think it is. This poll is pretty close. So I just want to go through one more time and show you guys what this is year to date. So first I want to look at month. Well, we'll look at the week real quickly for those of you who weren't here. This was not a great week for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin was down 1% this week. TeraWulf, it was a good week, up 13%. They had a bunch of news that we went through. I think all good news. They raised $3.2 billion and then they raised another $1 billion 2 weeks later. I mean, they're positioning themselves to be a monster. And if you go look at TeraWulf, their market cap is $6 billion. They're not priced like a monster, right? That's less than half of what IREN is at. And I think with what they've done, they've got access to more capital than anybody else. Now, are they as good at what they do? Do they have as good of an energy deal as IREN? IREN's a very exceptionally well-run company, in my opinion. But that's not to say that TeraWulf isn't also, and I think there's just massive, massive upside. There's from $6 billion, I could just see this going to much greater places. So I think there's a lot of room. TeraWulf's at $6 billion. Core Scientific is somewhere in that same neighborhood. I just think there's a lot of room to the upside, and I don't own either of those. So not financial advice. I don't even own those stocks, but I would like to get my hands on them. Which stock is more undervalued, Bitfarms or Marathon? I own both of these stocks. Well, I also own both of these stocks, and I think it's not even close. Marathon is just ridiculously underpriced, in my opinion. That doesn't mean I think Bitfarms is bad. I have not sold a single share of my Bitfarms. And I have options that I'm actually going to convert when they come due. I'm not going to sell them and take my profits. I'm going to convert them to shares and keep them because I think there's more room to the upside. And I was fortunate. I have 50-cent options, $1 options, and $1.50 options for Bitfarms. So, for pennies on the dollar, I can get, a significant, all those options can turn into shares of stock. So I think there's plenty of room left for Bitfarms, but Marathon. So if I go back to this chart, if we go to year to date, Bitfarms is up 166% this year. Now, in the middle, it crashed. So it's actually up, a lot more than that off of its lows. But all in from the beginning of the year till now, this is up 166%. Marathon's up 9%. I believe they were both red last year. Right? Bitfarms was down 50% last year. Marathon was down 30% last year. Now, Bitfarms has more than made up for that this year. But Marathon hasn't. They were down 29% this year. They're up 9 last year. They're up 9% this year. So, on a 2-year, over the last 2 years, if you own Marathon, you're down, which is me. And I've dollar cost averaged in, and I'll probably buy some more if it dips again. I bought more Marathon at the beginning of the week on the dip. So, I'm not dramatically large portions at this point, but I'm just going to keep it. If they're going to keep undervaluing it, I do think there's nothing but good news ahead for them. And they're just, none of it's priced in right now, in my opinion. So I'd rather I love my IREN position, but up 519%, I'm not likely to put the next dollar into IREN. I'm more likely to take some profits out of it. But Marathon up 9% on the year. Are you kidding me? BitDR 2%. These are companies that are performing well. Marathon's about to put out the best financial statement out of all of these companies. Right? They're going to make significant money. They have a very strong balance sheet. They have 53,000 Bitcoin. So, again, not financial advice. I own Bitfarms and Marathon. You guys do your due diligence and see if you think there's opportunity there. I think there's opportunity all over this board, in my opinion. So I think we're far from the end of the run. That's just my opinion. This last vote was a real split. Is CORZ a buy at $21.54 where it closed today? 44% said yes. 56% said no, it is not a buy. They're still not interested. I am interested at 21 bucks. I do think there's room to run on this, but it's getting really hard because, as we've talked about on this channel for a long, long, long time, you can only buy the dip so many times. And, I'm pretty much all in on the Bitcoin miner / high performance computing stocks, but I would like to find a way to attach myself to some of the upside that I think is ahead for TeraWolf and Core Scientific, in my opinion. Those are just my thoughts. So I'll leave you with that. It's actually Halloween for those of you in the United States or for those of you who care. So happy Halloween. Everybody be safe and everybody have a great weekend. And I got to say, go Bitcoin, but I also got to say, go Bills. They have this. This is it for the Bills. This Sunday, it's win or go home. So go Bitcoin. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. Special thanks to all the members, of course. And for the members, we will see you Tuesday